Mother Grimwood's Appalachian horror stories, tales from under a dead moon. Appalachia is a land of stories. Those mountains and woods are older than most can imagine. And the stories. Some of those stories that echo through those ancient hollows were told long before there were folks to tell them. It is only fitting that a great storyteller would be drawn here. That is what brought Mother Grimwood this way. She has traveled these hills for some time, gathering up all manner of tales and squirreling them away in her magic book. Now, old Mother Grimwood is a witch by birth, and she uses those gifts to breathe life into the stories she presents to her audience. Yes, they are some mighty dark tales, but I don't see any harm in a little fright. While Mother Grimwood is out roaming the back country, let's take a little peek inside her book of tales to see what we can expect come October. Let's begin. The Hartwig clan, the feral folk. The mountains have eyes, not the kind that shine in the night like a panther's, nor the kind that belong to some lonesome wanderer. No, these eyes belong to something older, something wild, something that was once human. Long ago, before roads carved through the hollers, a family settled deep in the hills. Conrad Hartwig, the patriarch of the Hartwig clan, was a Hessian soldier in the Revolutionary War. He had fallen in love with a Virginia girl, so he stayed in America after the war. They set up a homestead deep in the mountains, and it is there where Conrad struck a deal with the unnatural. Some say he sold his soul to the devil, and others claim he had fallen under the spell of a dark god called the Neath. Whatever the circumstances, he and his offspring became bound to the woods. They kept to themselves, living off what they could hunt, what they could steal, and what they could take from those who strayed too far from the path. The years passed, and the world forgot them. But they never forgot the world. They changed. Bones twisted from generations in the dark, skin thick and pale, eyes wide and sharp. They learned to move like shadows, to blend with the trees, and when food grew scarce, they learned that man tastes much like deer. Some say if you hear rustling in the underbrush and smell something foul like meat left too long in the sun, don't run. Running makes them chase. Just lower your head, don't meet their gaze, and pray they aren't hungry. But if you do run, if you hear something crashing through the branches behind you, laughing, snarling, you best hope you don't trip, because once they take you, you don't come back. Woolly booger. The deep woods hold things older than man, creatures that slip between the trees, watching, waiting. The old-timers call him the woolly booger, a shaggy beast covered in thick, matted fur taller than any man, with hands too human for comfort. Some say he's a spirit of the land, born from the roots of the oldest trees. Others whisper that he was once a man, cursed for spilling blood where he shouldn't have. Whatever he is, folks know better than to call his name too loud in the woods, because the woolly booger don't take kindly to being hunted. Many have tried. The menfolk load up their rifles and set out with dogs, their laughter echoing through the hills. But come morning, only the dogs come back, whimpering, tails tucked, their fur slick with something dark. And the men? Well, bits of their clothing sometimes show up, tangled in the branches, torn and stiff with dried blood. But every so often a hunter staggers out of the woods, wild-eyed and trembling, his hair gone stark white overnight. He won't talk about what he saw, won't say why he won't go near the tree line anymore. But if you listen close on quiet nights, you can hear it. Low, heavy breathing just beyond the firelight, and the sound of something big moving through the brush, watching, waiting. Husk Shambler. The ancient heart of the Appalachian Mountains is a place of deep shadows and darker secrets. The land is old, older than the trees, older than the rivers that cut through stone, and in those hidden places where the sunlight never quite reaches, something waits. There are those who have felt its pull, heard its whisper in the wind through the hollers. People with hate in their hearts, wronged and broken, who seek justice not from men, but from the dark itself. And when they give themselves over to it, when they let that shadow sink into their bones, they become something else. They become husk shamblers. A husk shambler is born from vengeance, from the need to hunt those who have done them wrong. The dark gifts them with the power to change, to slip from their human skin and take on the shape of a beast. Most often, they become wolves, gray, gaunt things with ragged fur and eyes that burn too bright. But some have been seen as panthers, as bears, as twisted creatures that have no name. At first, the transformation is smooth, controlled. They hunt their enemies, striking from the dark, leaving behind only blood and whispers. But the more they shift, the more the change clings to them. Soon, they can no longer return to their human selves fully. Their bodies twist, caught between man and beast. Their fingers stretch into gnarled claws. Their jaws lengthen. Their voices turn into something hollow and wrong. They no longer walk the world. They shamble through it, something neither here nor there, a husk of what they once were. Now, the husk shamblers roam the mountains, their vengeance long spent, their minds lost to the hunger of the hunt. They linger near old homesteads, scratching at doors in the dead of night, their forms half lit by the moon, their faces caught in that awful, twisted in-between. The old folks say that if you hear a voice in the woods calling your name, a voice you know but something feels off, do not answer. If you see the flicker of movement between the trees, something tall, too thin, with eyes that shine like embers, do not run. Because once a husk shambler sets its sights on you, there's no hiding, no escaping, and no mercy. Boohag. There's a saying in the hills. Don't go to bed with your soul unguarded, or the boohag will ride you. She comes in the dead of night, slipping through cracks in the walls, crawling through windows left unlocked. She has no skin of her own, just raw red muscle and sinew, her breath smelling of grave dirt. But she won't stay that way for long. The boohag needs a body to hide in, a fresh disguise to walk among the living. So she picks her victims while they sleep, straddling their chests, stealing their breath with every slow inhale. The ones she favors wake up tired, weak, their dreams filled with shadows. But if she lingers too long, if she drains them dry, well, that's when she takes their skin for herself. Folks say you can keep her away by hanging a broom by the door. She's got to count every straw before she can enter, and she never finishes before sunrise. Others say to sprinkle red salt on the windowsill, for the taste of blood will scare her off. But if you ever wake up in the night and feel something heavy pressing on your chest, if you can't scream, can't move, and the air smells of something old and rotten, don't open your eyes. Because if you do, you'll see her grinning down at you, wearing the face of someone you love. The Mouthbound Man. In the hollows of Black Hollow Ridge, there lingers a ghost who cannot speak, his lips sewn tight with blackened thread. They call him the Mouthbound Man, and though he cannot speak, his voice can be heard. Long ago, Chester Hardgrove, a traveling preacher, came through the hills, warning of hellfire and sin. But the town of Barren Fork had secrets to keep, sins deeper than the mines that cut through the land. The people of Barren Fork had taken to worshiping a dark spirit in the woods called the Neath. Part of their cursed adoration of the spirit was the sacrificing of children to the spirit. The preacher discovered too much about the missing children, the bodies buried where the roots grew thick. So they silenced him. Needle and thread, stitch by stitch, they buried him beneath the old sycamore tree, thinking their secrets would stay hidden. But secrets fester, and old evil entities turn on those that are foolish enough to worship them. The Neath heard the desperate prayers of the preacher and decided to resurrect him so that he could seek vengeance. On fog-heavy autumn nights, the Mouthbound Man roams the hills, searching for those who stole his voice. His mouth sewn up tight, and his black preacher clothes are covered with autumn yellow sycamore leaves. His fingers reach for their throats, his breath a cold whisper in their ears. He cannot speak, but his voice is heard as it cries out for vengeance. And if he catches you, if you hear his cursed pleas, your own lips will stitch themselves shut, thread curling through flesh, sealing your fate. The Kindergeister of Barren Fork. There was a town once, hidden deep in the mountains of Virginia. Its name was Barren Fork, though no map bears its mark now. Folks don't speak of it, and those who do keep their voices low, as if something might still be listening. The town had a wickedness in it, one that took root like a sickness and spread through every home, every heart. It wasn't always that way. Once, Barren Fork was like any other mountain town, poor but proud, surviving on hard work and stubborn faith. But when sickness came, when the crops withered and the game fled the woods, the people of Barren Fork turned to the Neath. No one knows how they first heard its name. Some say a whisper came crawling up from the deep places, from the cracks in the stone where the earth groans in its sleep. Others say an old woman, a stranger from nowhere, came through town with dark words and darker promises. However it happened, the people listened, and so they made the pact. The Neath would grant them prosperity, their crops would grow tall, their livestock would fatten, and their children would live strong. But the Neath's hunger is eternal. Every season they had to feed it. The ritual was always the same. A child, never too young, never too old, was chosen. Wrapped in a white sheet, they were led deep into the woods where an ancient well yawned like an open throat. With whispered prayers and steady hands, they cast the child into the dark, their cries swallowed by the endless black. And so it went, year after year. The people flourished. Their barns were full, their bellies never empty. But the forest around Barren Fork grew wrong. Too quiet, too still, the trees gnarled like hands, reaching for something unseen. Those who came too close swore they heard whispers rising from the well, voices not quite human, voices that should not have been there. Then came the preacher. He was a traveling minister, a man of fire and brimstone, who stumbled upon Barren Fork and saw the evil nestled in its heart. He spoke against them, railed against their unholy rites, swore to burn their wickedness out. But the town could not allow that, so they silenced him. His body was never found, but his blood soaked the earth, and something in the woods felt it. The next season, the people gathered by the well, their chosen sacrifice wrapped and ready. But when they pulled back the sheet, there was no child inside, only bones. The Neath had taken what it wanted. The pact was broken. Barren Fork died screaming. No one knows exactly what happened that night. Some say the forest came alive, roots twisting through homes, pulling people into the dirt. Others say the well boiled over, spewing forth something dark and writhing that devoured the town whole. By morning, there was nothing left but rotting timbers and silent streets. No bird sang, no wind stirred the dust. Barren Fork was abandoned, but not empty. To this day, when the mist creeps low through the hollows, you can see them, the kindergeister, the lost children. They still wear their white sheets, still drift between the broken houses, waiting, watching. Some say they stand guard, keeping others from waking what sleeps beneath the well. Others say they are hungry, just like the Neath once was. And if you hear a voice whisper your name in the trees, do not answer. For once the kindergeisters see you, they will never let you leave. Hamburger. Back in the Prohibition days, when moonshine ran thicker than creek water in the hollers, there was a band of bootleggers who thought they were clever. They set up their still on a patch of land no one dared step foot on, land belonging to an old mountain witch. Folks told them to stay away. warned them that the crone in those woods didn't take kindly to trespassers. But fear makes for good business, and those moonshiners figured if folks were too scared to come snooping, they'd have the safest still in the Appalachians. With them, they brought a hog, a fat, ugly brute they called Old Booger. Booger had a peculiar talent. He could drink moonshine without keeling over. The bootleggers used him to test their batches, pouring the clear liquid into a slop bucket and watching to see if the hog stayed on its feet. If Booger survived, the shine was good. If he didn't, well, they'd know not to sell it. For a while, things went smooth. The still bubbled, the money flowed, and Booger kept on drinking. But the witch, she was watching. She waited until the men got careless, until their laughter grew loud and their cups spilled more shine than they drank. Then, under the cover of a moonless night, she stepped into their camp, whispering curses into the rising steam of their still. And when she was done, she turned her eyes to Old Booger. The next morning, the still stood shattered, the ground soaked in wasted whiskey, and where Old Booger had been, something else stood. The hog had changed. It had grown to the size of an elephant, its hide thick with bristling black hair. Its snout had stretched, fangs curling from its mouth, and from its skull jutted a pair of twisted stag antlers, gnarled and wrong. Its eyes, once dull and dumb, now burned with a wild, insatiable hunger. The moonshiners didn't have time to run. The creature tore through them in a frenzy, driven mad by the thirst the witch had cursed into its bones. It drained their barrels, smashed their jugs, and when the shine was gone, it turned its fury on the men who had made it. By morning, all that was left were bones gnawed clean and the smell of corn liquor in the air. The hamburger was born. Now, they say it still roams the mountains, sniffing out stills, breaking them apart, and killing anyone who dares to stand between it and its next drop of shine. If you ever hear a deep, snorting breath in the woods, or see the shadow of something too big, too wrong, moving through the trees, don't run, don't scream, because once the hamburger has caught your scent, there's no escaping. And when it finds you, it won't stop until its belly is full and its throat burns with fire. Vein crawler, venispiser. Deep in the black hollows of the mountains, where evil things have dominion, she waits. She is older than the roots of the mountains, a thing made of shadow and silk, and she is always hungry. They call her venispiser, the vein crawler, the spider queen of Dark Hollow. She is not a woman nor a beast, but something older and worse. Some say she was a woman once, long before the mountains rose, before the rivers cut their paths, before men walked these lands. Others say she was never human at all, just a thing left behind when the neath was banished into the deep places beneath the earth. Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain. She is always hungry. Jacob Proctor was a trapper, a fool, and worst of all, a man who didn't listen. Folks had warned him not to go too deep, not to stray past the rotten pines or the stones slick with something black. But hunger makes men reckless, and that winter had been cruel. Game was scarce, and Jacob's belly ached. So he went where he shouldn't have gone. Days passed, and Jacob never came home. His brother Ezra led a search party up the ridge, following Jacob's tracks through the snow. Much to the dismay of the search party, the tracks led straight to the door of the abandoned DarkWood Manor. All the men knew of the stories of the manor, and they would not enter. So they left Ezra to venture into the manor alone. Ezra screwed up his courage and stepped into the darkened halls of DarkWood. In the dim light, he pushed his way through thick webs and cobwebs as he called his brother's name. And then came the skittering. Not one thing, many. From the dark of the shadowy rooms, they crawled. Things that should not be. The first was a spider the size of an oak barrel, but with the head of a wolf. Its mouth opened wide to reveal its bloody canine fangs. Its howling cry shook the walls. Then came the other spider things. Mutated spiders of all kinds. Their eyes gleamed yellow, their mouths too wide, too full of fangs. He was frozen in place by terror when he saw it. A lone pumpkin, fat and round, sitting in the middle of a hall. Its surface was slick, almost wet, and as he turned away, a deep splitting sound filled the air. The pumpkin cracked down the middle, not like a fruit, but like a thing hatching. 8 vine-like legs, too long, too thin, unfolded from inside, and the carved face on its skin twisted, its jagged grin widening as it stretched into something alive. The glow inside flared bright orange, and then it screeched, a wet, rasping sound as the thing skittered toward him on clicking legs. Ezra screamed, but the layers of webs swallowed the sound whole. Then a man appeared from the shadows. His body was thin, skin pulled tight over his bones. His face, if you could still call it that, had gone pale, his mouth stretched into a permanent grin of needle-like teeth, his eyes black and glassy as a widow's. Ezra recognized him. "Jacob?" he gasped, but Jacob only chittered, his fingers twitching, 8 black limbs unfurling from his back. His mind snapped, but his legs were able to carry him screaming from the old manor. Ezra stumbled into town at dawn, his boots missing, his hands raw and bleeding. He spoke of the manor, the web-wrapped halls, the mutant spiders, but mostly he spoke of Jacob. He spoke, but it weren't right. Ezra gasped, feverish, said she was hungry, said I should have let her bite me too. 3 days later, Ezra was dead. His veins had turned black as ink, and when the doctor cut his skin, something spun out in silken threads. Now folks know better than to go near DarkWood Manor. They leave it be, whispering of the things that guard its depths. They say venispiser waits in the broken halls, tending her web, listening to the whispers of the neath, the ones she bites. She changes, twists them into her children, her servants, creatures that skitter and howl and laugh in the dark. And if you ever see a spider that shouldn't be, one with the face of a wolf or the grin of a jack-o'-lantern, run, because if you hear the skittering, it's already too late. And if you turn back, you might just hear a voice, soft as silk, cold as stone, whispering in the dark. She is always hungry. Bone Shadow's Curse. In the autumn of 1864, as war bled through the land like an open wound, a band of Confederate soldiers, hollow-eyed and desperate, fled General Grant's relentless advance into Virginia. With their rations spent and their spirits frayed, they turned to the mountains, where the land itself was as merciless as the men who wandered it. High in those misted hollows, they came upon a small farm, a lonely patch of earth carved from the wilds. Its owner was a medicine man of the Saponi people, known only as Bone Shadow. He was a man of secrets, a keeper of the old ways, and the land listened when he spoke. The soldiers smelled the corn before they saw it, golden and ripe, whispering in the cold breath of the wind. Hunger twisted their bellies into knots. They demanded his harvest, but Bone Shadow stood his ground, his dark eyes burning like coals. "This land is not yours to take," he warned. "Desperation makes men cruel, and cruelty makes them reckless." The soldiers set upon him, their bayonets flashing in the failing light. Bone Shadow fought, but steel and numbers overwhelmed him. As his life spilled onto the soil, he lifted his trembling hands to the sky and called upon Oki, the old god of wrath and judgment. "Let not one of them leave this place," he rasped, his voice no louder than a rustling corn. The wind stilled. The mountains held their breath. With Bone Shadow dead, the soldiers laughed, their stomachs rumbling as they sat upon the field, tearing the golden ears from their stalks. But as the last soldier waded into the sea of corn, the air thickened, heavy and wet, like the hush before a storm. Then the screaming began. Something moved between the stalks, something neither beast nor man, something born of shadow and vengeance. It hunted in silence, its presence known only by the wet crunch of bone and the ragged gasps that never found breath again. One by one, the soldiers vanished into the gloom, their cries swallowed by the whispering corn. By dawn, the field stood undisturbed, save for the blood-blackened earth where the stalks drank deep. The soldiers were gone, devoured, carried off, or twisted into the roots themselves. And so, the mountain folk tell it, on cold autumn nights, when the wind stirs the dry husks of corn, the whispers return. Some say it is only the wind. Others, wiser and warier, claim it is Bone Shadow's vengeance, still reaping what was sown. And if you listen closely, beneath the rustling stalks, you might still hear the soldiers scream. The snake billies and old copperhead. Deep in the hollows where the sun don't touch and the trees grow too close together, there's a breed of folk that don't take kindly to strangers. Folks call 'em snake billies, half man, half serpent, and all touched in the head. They live where the roads turn to mud and the trails lead nowhere, where even the bravest won't tread after dark. Most of 'em look normal enough at first glance. Ragged clothes, long staring eyes, skin that don't quite seem to fit right. But if you see one up close, real close, you'll notice the way their pupils ain't round, but slit like a viper's, the way their skin peels in patches, flaking off to reveal something slick and scaly underneath. Some say the worst of 'em don't even try to hide it no more, just shed their human skins like old husks and let the snake come through proper. They weren't always like this, not until old Copperhead slithered into their minds. Old Copperhead ain't man, nor beast, nor anything that belongs to this earth. He's got the long, scaled head of a serpent with stubby, gnarled antlers curling from his brow. His body's shaped like a man's, but wrong. Too lean, too stretched, muscles twisting like a pit of writhing snakes just beneath his skin. His voice is low and sweet like a lullaby sung over a rattler's hiss. and it gets in your head if you listen too long. The snake billies call him a god. Maybe he is, maybe he ain't. But whatever he is, he's got 'em under his spell, and he's got his hungers. See, most dark things that crawl and whisper in these mountains take their due in blood. Animals, men don't much matter. But old Copperhead wants witches. Good witches, bad witches, makes no never mind to him. Granny women who heal with herbs, he wants 'em. Dark conjure folk who whisper to spirits, he wants them too. Long as the snake billies burn 'em at the stake and speak his name while the fire eats their bones, he's pleased. Nobody knows why witches set his belly to growling, but the snake billies don't ask questions. They just do as they're told. And then there's the pumpkins. The land the snake billies live on ain't like anywhere else. It don't rot, don't die, don't ever stop growing. Maybe it's cursed, or maybe it's been blessed in some twisted way. But whatever the reason, it spawns pumpkins bigger than a man's head, swollen and gnarled. They grow wild and thick around snake-billy homesteads, curling along the ground like a nest of coiled vipers. And inside? Seeds, yes, but something else not normal. Folks who've been foolish enough to cut one open say they've got meat inside, red and stringy, slick with something that smells like copper. Some say the pumpkins ain't grown at all, but born that the bones of the witches sacrificed to old Copperhead feed the roots, that their flesh fills the gourds, that their spirits still whisper inside, trying to claw their way out. Some say that's why the snake billies never eat 'em. Some say they do. Some say you can hear the screams of his victims carried on the wind on certain nights, mixing with the crackle of unseen flames. Some say the woods themselves remember the burning, that the trees near a snake billy's homestead lean away like they're trying to forget. And some say if you ever hear a soft, dry voice calling your name in the woods, like dead leaves brushing together, run, because it means old Copperhead's set his yellow eyes on you. Lowbottom Tom. Back in the 1920s, when the Shenandoah River was thick with bootleggers running moonshine by boat, there was a man named Tom Hardgrove, known to most as Handsome Tom. He was the kind of man who could talk a fish right out of the water, a sharp-dressed charmer with a silver tongue, and a grin that could sell a mud hole as a mineral spring. Tom set up a bait and tackle shop at Lowbottom Landing, but selling worms wasn't his real trade. No, Tom made his money conning moonshiners who stopped for supplies, tricking them out of their best bottles, slipping extra weight onto their scales, and sometimes making their whole shipments disappear overnight. But then came the night Tom tried to con the wrong man. A stranger came drifting into Lowbottom just past midnight, his boat gliding through the water like it wasn't touching the river at all. He was tall, sharp-dressed, with a voice like honey and a shadow that moved wrong. He set a single jug of whiskey on Tom's counter and asked for a trade. Tom, never one to turn down a deal, figured he could pull his usual tricks. He swapped the jug for a look-alike full of river water, smooth as a magician's sleight of hand. The stranger tipped his hat took the bottle and walked back toward his boat. But before he left, he turned and grinned. "Clever boy," he said, "but you'd do well to remember, ain't no one cheats the devil and walks away clean." The next morning, Handsome Tom wasn't handsome no more. His reflection in the river showed the truth before his mirror did. His face had sagged, his skin turned gray and slick, his mouth stretched wide with whisker-thin tendrils curling from his cheeks like a catfish pulled too long from the deep. His eyes, once sharp and blue, had gone round and pale like something that had lived too long in the dark. They say old Tom still works in his old run-down bait shop at Lowbottom Landing. If you are unfortunate enough to go into his Lowbottom Tom's personal hell, he will trick you out of whatever you have to offer. But worse still, some claim Tom gained something in his curse, a voice that can call out to the ancient things that lurk in the riverbed. When the waters churn without wind, when the mist rolls heavy over the surface and something huge stirs beneath, that ain't just the river moving. That's Tom calling Hellbender. And if you're on the water when that happens, well, you best start praying, because Tom don't cut fair deals anymore. Hellbender, deep in the winding rivers of Appalachia, where the water runs dark and cold, there lurks an ancient thing, older than the mountains, older than time itself. They call it the Hellbender. Once it was just a salamander, a big one, the kind that slithered through creek beds and hid beneath river stones. But when men came to dig their mines and poison the waters, the river grew sick, and the creature changed. It swallowed the sickness, letting it twist its body into something monstrous, something hungry. Old fishermen tell of strange nights when the river turns still and the fog hangs heavy. That's when the Hellbender comes crawling from the depths, skin slick and black, eyes like burning coals, gills flaring as it drags its swollen body onto the banks. It waits for those foolish enough to wade too deep, to let the water reach past their knees. If it latches onto you, there ain't no screaming, only bubbles breaking the surface as you're pulled under. And if the Hellbender don't eat you, it does something worse. It changes you. The river has its own way of making monsters. The Raven Mockers. There are old stories in the mountains, ones folks don't tell after dark, ones meant to keep children close to the hearth and warn the dying to keep their windows shut. Among the worst of these are the tales of the Raven Mockers. They weren't always monsters. They were once men and women, outcasts, exiles, and the shunned. Cast away from their own people, they found each other in the wild places where no law nor God dared tread. They came from every bloodline that ever settled these hills, Irish, German, English, African, Cherokee, but they held no allegiance to any people, only to the old dark ways that promised them power. They found that power in death. Through black rites whispered in forgotten tongues, they learned how to steal the last breaths of the dying, to feed on their pain, their fear, their very souls. Each life taken stretched their own, made them stronger, let them cheat the grave for another year. But such unnatural gifts came at a cost. Over time, the worst of them began to change. Some grew too long in the limbs, their fingers curling like talons. Others had eyes that caught the light like a beast's, black and gleaming. Some claimed the most ancient among them had shed their human skins entirely, their flesh twisted into something between bird and shadow. When the wind howled through the trees, people swore they heard the rustling of wings too large to belong to any earthly creature. It is said that when a man lay on his deathbed, struggling for his final breath, the raven mockers would come. You'd never see them, not outright, but you'd feel them, the air turning heavy, the candlelight flickering even when the wind was still. The sick would toss in their beds, clutching at their chests as if something unseen were perched there, digging in its claws. And if you listened close, past the wheezing of the dying, past the crackling fire, you might hear it. A rasping, guttural call, a mockery of life echoing from the shadows. Once they were hunted. The Cherokee, the mountain conjure folk, and the old granny witches knew how to root them out, how to fight back with fire, salt, and sacred words. Some were burned, some were buried alive, some were cast into the hollows where even the bravest would not tread. But the raven mockers were never truly wiped out. To this day, when sickness takes hold of a house, when death lingers too long in the air, some say they still come creeping. You might not see them, but they are there, watching, waiting, feeding. So when your time draws near and the night grows still, listen carefully. If you hear wings in the dark, if you hear laughter that is not laughter at all, it means they've come for you, and no prayer will keep them out. Moontoms. Moontoms are humanoid goblin creatures. They have dust-covered hair, pale skin that is often covered in dirt and grime, large ears, long limbs, clawed fingers, and their cat-like eyes seemingly glow in the dark. Their exact origins are unknown. Some Appalachian elders believe they're the spirits of unfortunate souls who perished in cave collapses and were transformed into these creatures. As their eyes are quite sensitive to sunlight, Moontoms are believed to be nocturnal and live in the caves and abandoned mines of the Appalachian Mountains. They're expert tunnelers, can easily pass through narrow crevices and create hidden tunnels to connect different caves. Miners in Virginia and West Virginia have reported discovering passageways that they did not create. Moontoms communicate primarily through whispers and rhythmic knocking. This can be particularly disorienting, as Moontoms' echoing voices seem to mimic the human voices of lost travelers. While some miners believe the knocks may be warnings of underground collapse, many believe the knocks are a nefarious attempt to lure trespassers further into their underground labyrinths. Appalachian elders warn that if you hear whispers of your name in caves, you must never answer. Similarly, if you hear the knocks, you must break the pattern by knocking back one less what you heard. Sightings of Moontoms are rare. This is partially due to their secretive nature but also because they may possess some hypnotic abilities. Legends warn that staring into a Moontom's glowing eyes for too long may induce a trance-like state, leaving the person disoriented and, in extreme cases, with little to no memory of the encounter. Moontoms are also suspected to be kleptomaniacs, stealing miners' food, clothing, tools, and lanterns. The dweller neath. The old folks in the mountain towns don't say its name aloud, not unless the sun is bright and the doors are locked tight. Even then they speak it in whispers. Neath, the hunger in the hollows, the fire in the deep. They say it was here before the mountains rose, before the rivers carved their paths, before men ever set foot in these woods. It slumbers in the black heart of the earth, shifting in the stone, its body as fluid as smoke, as solid as shadow. It takes whatever shape it pleases, but no matter the form, its core burns with an unholy fire, an orange light not meant for mortal eyes. Neath does not stir often, for it has no need. The things that crawl and slither in the dark, the wraiths in the mines, the twisted things that flit between trees just beyond the lantern light, those belong to Neath. The haints, the boogers, the dark witches. It speaks to them in the silent places, sends them out like fingers of shadow to fetch what it craves. For Neath hungers, always. It does not want food, not as men do. It wants bodies and souls, the warmth of life drawn down into the cold, dead depths. Miners go missing, their tunnels leading to places not marked on any map. Hunters step too far off the path and never return. Children who wander where they shouldn't hear voices whispering from beneath their feet, calling them down, down, down. Some say Neath can take a man without ever touching him. It gets in his mind, makes him hear things in the wind, see things in the dark that aren't there, until he stumbles into some long-forgotten cave, into the belly of the mountain, and is never seen again. There are old places in these hills, places where the earth is split like a wound, and the air stinks of sulfur even in the dead of winter. Places where the trees grow twisted, their roots clawing at the dirt like they're trying to pull themselves free. Folks who know better don't go near those places, because Neath is always waiting. And if you feel warmth in the deep cold of the caverns, if you see a flicker of fire where no fire should be, turn back, run. Pray you weren't seen. For once the dweller neath sets its hunger on you, there is no light bright enough, no prayer strong enough to keep it from taking you below.